Hey guys, this is Stu Sensei, and today we have another Q&A. First question from Matthias. Does brace height affect draw weight? That's a really good question. I don't know the specific answer, and I'm hoping that somebody else can help me out here. I can say that it would definitely feel like it's heavier. An understrung bow, that's a brace height that's too short, will require you to put more tension on the limbs. You have to overcome the limbs design to get back to your full draw. If the bow is overstrung, the string's too short and the brace height's too high, then it's already under tension, so it will feel lighter coming into your anchor point and it won't snap back as much. So it will have an impact on the arrow flight. Does it mean the draw weight is heavier? I'm not sure if the answer is technically yes, but it will feel heavier or lighter. Question from Dave. Why didn't you think it was important to cover the Paralympics after several people requested on YouTube and Facebook? That's kind of a loaded question. It's not that I don't think it's important, it's just that I haven't covered it. Firstly, there weren't that many people asking for it. It's only about 3 people, plus or minus 1. Secondly, I don't know much about it, and I don't like covering things I don't know much about. I want to take time to learn about it, research, read about it. So rather than give you misinformation, I didn't cover it. The third reason is, generally speaking, I don't cover current events in archery. I barely kept up with the Olympics as it was. I mean, I only watched all the matches after the Olympics ended. And even right now, there was the World Field Archery Championships in Dublin, and I didn't cover that either. So generally speaking, I don't cover current events. The Olympics are probably the most topical thing, and I did know about that. But otherwise, I only cover things when I have enough knowledge and experience to cover it in proper detail. Monica asked, what are the advantages of manufactured targets compared to handmade targets, and what kind of material should you look out for? The biggest advantage of a pre-made target, especially from a club point of view, is that a pre-made target is ready to use and will generally last longer. The handmade target, which is very popular in clubs, does require quite a bit of maintenance and working hours. So for example, in our club, we're thinking about buying foam targets. They last a long time, they're very easy to set up and use, but they do cost hundreds, for the core, for the actual target itself. The current targets we use 2 types. We use Stramit, which is a straw-based insulation material, and we also use plastic, which we pack very densely. We press it, we tie it together, and then put it into a wooden frame. These things are fairly easy and fairly cheap, but they do require manual labor, and if you don't have the manpower or volunteers to do this on a regular basis, then this can become a little unviable. I know a lot of larger clubs will organize huge working bees to get their 50 targets set up. We're a small club. We only have a small number of targets, but if we expand to say a dozen targets, then that's going to take a lot more work. So it's a sacrifice between cost effectiveness, so going to a budget level or a low cost level, versus having something which will last longer, requires less labor, and costs a lot more. In terms of materials, especially if you're doing homemade stuff, then you're probably looking at materials which are recycled or reused. Some of the things I recommend might be old carpet. If you pack together densely enough, it can stop arrows through pure friction. You can use cardboard. Again, if you pack it densely enough, it can stop arrows. Plastic pallet wrap. If you can find like a warehouse or a shop with tons of plastic to throw out, then that can be reused if you pack it densely enough. Even things like excess wetsuit material can be used for target, as long as you pack it densely enough. And that's the pattern really. If you compress things enough, a lot of materials can be used to stop arrows. It's mostly the loose, hollow, empty boxes which will be hard to use, especially with stronger bows. But if you're using a light bow, even a cardboard box full of old clothing can stop an arrow. But heavier bows, you will require denser materials. Question from Irfan, why do athletes bring spare bows? The main obvious reason is in case something goes wrong. In a normal competition where most people only have one bow, you are allowed to repair equipment faults. So let's say your arrow rest falls off, then you can lift your bow in the shooting line, the judge will come, they'll say, alright, there's equipment failure, so you go off the line, and then you repair your equipment failure, and then you shoot after everybody else shoots. In a one-on-one world level competition, you don't have that time. The competition must run to schedule, so instead of spending minutes trying to fidget and fix things, they have a second bow ready to go. This second bow is configured exactly the same as the original bow, so they can use any bow to shoot, and that's why they have a second bow. Also remember too that a lot of the professional athletes are sponsored, so they don't have to actually buy a second bow. It's often provided as part of a sponsorship, so they can do so. Not everyone who shot at the recent Olympics had a second bow, but if you're at that level and you're practicing professionally with sponsorship, it can be expected that you have a second bow. And that does make things a lot easier and less risky in case things go wrong. Very rarely the case, but that's there just in case. Ismail asked, does twisting the arrow make it fly better? No, I don't really think how it would. If you mean twist, I'm not sure how you mean by twisting the arrow. If you mean like applying a twist to the string or making it turn somewhere, then not really. The straighter the motion of your shot in line with the arrow, the more likely it is to fly straight. That's the idea. If you mean like me, like putting a spin on the arrow, that's what the vane does. Naturally, when you release an arrow, it will have a spin, and the vanes will control that spin. You don't have to add any extra twist or spin to the arrow. I'm not sure what the question was, but generally you don't want to do anything to the arrow to make it fly better. Suzette asked, what happens if you use petroleum jelly to wax your string instead of wax? I actually don't know. I've never tried doing this, so if somebody knows, just answer below. Good question, no idea. DS Ire, why do you wear glasses? I'm short-sighted. Lagame asks, do you need additional training to become a better archer? This really depends on what your goals are. If you're just shooting casually and you want to become a more accurate shot, you don't need specific training to do so. A lot of it is form and technique and consistency, which you get from regular practice. And regular practice will gradually build up your strength and conditioning. So for the average recreational archer, you don't need that much extra training, if any at all. Now, if you're a professional athlete, then the answer is still probably no. Again, just the sheer fact that you use your bow so frequently, you will acquire the level of fitness you need to use it well. Now, in situations where you might need to train extra, things like going up in draw weight. If you're shooting a light bow and you want to shoot a 40 or 50 or 60 pound bow, you will need to do extra training. Things like rows, push-ups to an extent, stretching bands, these can help build you up. Otherwise, using the bow itself is a good idea. Holding exercises, high repetition drawing, that can still build you up. So you don't really have to go out of your way to be a better archer, but if you want to improve your fitness and conditioning to use bows that are heavier or shoot for longer periods of time, then you can do extra exercises. It's just not really a requirement to becoming a better archer. Windy asked, what does the 3 meter line mean? In a properly configured shooting range, there are 3 lines. There's the shooting line, which is where you shoot, obviously. It's 1 foot on either side of that line. There's the equipment line, which is behind the shooting line. That line is for where you place your bow after you finish shooting. So when you're done with your 6-arrow end or whatever arrows you shoot, you must place your equipment behind that line. You must stand behind that line. You can't go past that line until you are called to shoot or you are called to retrieve your arrows. The 3-meter line is in front of the shooting line, and that indicates whether an arrow has legally been considered shot. If you have a malfunction and the arrow flops in front of you, if the arrow doesn't cross that 3-meter line, then it is not considered shot. So you can retrieve the arrow or use another arrow to replace that arrow. If the arrow goes past that line, then it is considered shot, and therefore you cannot have a replacement arrow. This can happen if you, for example, you're drawing back and you accidentally let go. If it goes past 3 meters, then you consider to have shot the arrow, and therefore it will be a miss. And finally, the question of the month comes from John. What are potential careers in archery? Unfortunately, archery hasn't developed enough to have reliable pathways for careers. There are some. Things like sports administration come to mind, and unfortunately a lot of national associations are volunteer based, and most of the roles which are filled in, say, Archery Australia are volunteer. A lot of the coaches and team directors and managers are voluntary. There are some paid roles. For example, you might be the CEO or the Chief Financial Officer. These roles can be paid positions. But often these are people who are transferred from other sports. So someone who's run like a cricket association with proper administration qualifications may apply to become the archery administrator. So this is true for most sports. You can go from one to the other. There aren't many people who go from archery to an archery paid admin position. Again, it depends on where you are. Some countries have more developed systems than others, but for most places, many roles aren't reachable by the average archer. Same goes with coaching. You may find paid national coaches or coaching directors, but these are kind of very high level coaches or archers who have competed and become accredited coaches. And often they're from internationals, so like Korea or Japan or Taiwan. So again, it's kind of hard to reach that level where you can be paid to become a coach. And again, it's not the sort of thing where there's a huge demand for. You have one national coach. So it's not like every club has a requirement to pay their coaches. Most people who work in sort of field are voluntary. Of course, there's the retail and business side, so you can set up or work for an archery shop. Apart from that, there isn't too much out there. Even becoming a professional athlete is a pathway which isn't really viable for most people. Just because, again, the money isn't really there. If you're a dedicated full-time archer, then you've really got to establish yourself as a successful competitive archer. If you're thinking about doing this as a career, like a lot of people have become, say, career footballers or career tennis players, and that's a little different. That's a different lifestyle that requires sponsorship and support and so on. Archery isn't yet at that level in a professional sense. So yeah, to answer your question, I can't really name a guaranteed career pathway. There are potential gaps where you can fill in. There are things you can do, but it's not the most obvious thing. Again, you can think of things like retail, coaching, administration, design, like work for Hoyt or Win-Win, for example. But apart from these roles, which aren't really open, there's not much really out there that you or I could easily achieve. Anyway, that's the end of this Q&A. There are some other questions which were asked, but I don't want to cover right here, right now. There may be topics for future videos. I would like to give a shout out and thank you to Trevor from Shire Archery in Chesterfield in the UK. It's very motivating to receive shirts like this one. It means that you support what I do. You don't mind having your name or club or brand associated with this channel. So thank you. This means more to me and it motivates me more than a financial donation. So I'm still accepting shirt outs. If you want to send me a shirt, feel free to contact me and we'll arrange the details. It definitely motivates me. I will say that as soon as I get a shirt, I want to make a video right away just to wear it. So if you want more content and you like what I do, I'm happy to get in touch with you about wearing your shirt. It's a nice way to be part of the community that we've built up. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask below. This is New Sensei and I'll see you next time.